my channel. If you're new here, my name's Katie, and today I'm going to be sharing with you some DIYs from Dollar Tree items, and these are going to be fall DIYs. Thank you very much for clicking on this video, and let's go ahead and get right into the DIYs. This DIY is so easy. You guys might be mad at me. Hopefully you're not mad at me though, because it turns out so cute. So all you're going to need for this are 4 Dollar Tree candles, white candles, and then a black Sharpie. So I would recommend not the fine tip Sharpie, the thicker Sharpie. I know I have a fine tip laying out, but I tried that at first, and when I was drawing on the candles, it kind of picked up too much wax from the candle. So what you're going to be doing is just using your Sharpie to create some spooky ghost faces onto these candles. And I know you guys are still like, what in the heck are you doing? But when you get them all done and set next to each other, it is just adorable. I actually saw this idea on Pinterest. I will link the actual website from the person who created it down below, but honestly it's just a really easy idea, and if you have kids who are old enough to handle permanent markers, it would be fun to do with them as well. So for this DIY, you're going to need some liquid starch, cheesecloth, mason jars in whatever height that you would like for your ghost to be, and some scissors, a few balloons depending on how many ghosts you'll be making, and a bowl to pour the liquid starch into. So the first thing that I did was pour the liquid starch into my yellow bowl, and I didn't measure it out. I just poured a good amount into that bowl because you will be drenching the cheesecloth in it, and then I filled up the balloon with air just a little bit, and this will be creating the shape of a head for your ghost. And if you do want your ghost to have arms, then underneath the balloon add a pipe cleaner and just shape that how you would like the arms of your ghost to be. So the next thing that you're going to do is cut some cheesecloth and make sure that you cut it long enough so that it will drape to the bottom, and this will kind of create that look where your ghost is actually standing up and there's a little bit of extra fabric at the bottom, and this does give it a more realistic ghost type of appearance. You do want to make sure that the cheesecloth is completely coated in the liquid starch, and if any of you have ever worked with cheesecloth before, it can rip really easily. So after you've completely drenched it with the liquid starch, when you are untangling it, just be really careful not to tear any of the cheesecloth. You will be using a couple of different coats of the cheesecloth just to create more stability with your ghost, but I did try to not create any rips, just so that my ghost looked cohesive and not like there were holes in it. After you've done that, drape the cheesecloth over the top of the balloon and the pipe cleaner and mason jar and form that how you would like your ghost to look. So basically what you're doing is just creating the shape, and as this dries, then you will be able to remove the balloon and the mason jar from the inside. But first you have to create a structure so that the liquid starch can dry and harden and be in the shape that you want it to be. After the starch has hardened, and usually this takes about a day depending on how much liquid starch you used, I had a lot of it that was still drying towards the bottom of my ghost where there was extra fabric, and you just want to make sure that that is completely dry before you remove the mason jar and balloon combo, and you can just pull that gently out from the bottom. After that, I used some black felt to create eyes, and I just cut these out in oval shapes and used my hot glue gun to apply these on to my ghost. The next DIY I'm going to be making is a moon phase garland. So out of all the DIYs, I'm not going to lie, this one I was probably the least excited about, not because of how it looked at the end, but it just was not as easy as what I thought. So I used some sculpting clay that I got from Hobby Lobby, but you could use whatever clay you had on hand, and I just rolled this out until it was the thickness that I wanted it to be, and then I used a printable that I found online. There's a YouTuber called Jordan Clark, and I will link her channel down below, and she actually created a free printable. So if you are interested in making this wall hanging, then I would definitely recommend checking out her video and clicking on the link. It's in the video description, and then that way you could print it off as well. And so after I had rolled this to the height that I wanted it to be. Then I just placed the cutouts on top of it, and then I traced that with a pen. You can use a pencil, whatever you want. After I had traced all of the different moon phases, then I went over those with an X-Acto knife, and after that I just removed all of the excess clay from around the different moon pieces, and then I was left with all of my moon phases. After that, I just let these dry. It depends on what type of clay you have. Some clay you do have to bake in the oven, but you do need a type of clay that will dry and harden. Next, I went over the moons with this gold Rust-Oleum spray paint. This was just the color that I had on hand, and I felt like it went with the rest of the celestial type of decor that I had. But obviously, you can use whatever color you like. It did take a couple coats to get these moons completely coated. Once the paint has dried, the next step is to glue the moons onto a piece of string or whatever you would like to hang your moon phases from. This was the part that I felt was the worst, because after I had glued my moons onto the string, they would twist around until I had them like secured against a wall, and after I did that, they did remain flat and I didn't have any more issues. And I've had this hanging up on my wall for a couple weeks now. The glue has held up really nicely, and once this is secured or just like up against a flat surface, you don't have the twisting and issues that you have when you're just trying to like straight up glue it onto the piece of rope. So I do feel like it's worth the effort. It just can be a little bit of a hassle during this section. The next DIY was my favorite because it was so easy, and all you'll need is one of these glass containers from the Dollar Tree. I used E6000 glue, but you could also use hot glue. I used twine, a little moon pendant. I just had this at my house, but you can use it or don't use it, doesn't matter. And then I will link in the description box down below this font that I used. It reminds me of the embossed label maker type of font, but I don't have an embossing machine, so I just printed this off and then just cut it out, and it worked really well. It was a free font. To secure the paper onto the glass jar, I used Mod Podge. If it does get outside of the lines a little bit, it's okay. It will dry pretty much clear, and I also just feel like it gives it more of like a rustic look. After this, then I placed the moon garland onto the twine, and then I just wrapped it around the gold container from Dollar Tree and got it as thick as I wanted the twine to be. And then it is said that if you put water inside of this container and then put it outside during different phases of the moon, and then you will have charged moon water. I think it's like a witchcraft type of idea, but I think that that's really cool for Halloween and fall time. So for this DIY, you're going to need 3 bats cut out from cardstock. I just took an image online and just printed that off and then traced around it. And then I hot glued some clear, it's like fishing line onto the back of the bats. And I made this in varying heights because I was planning to secure this onto the top of a glass vase that I got from Dollar Tree, just using some clear tape. And for some reason, placing these bats was really difficult. I think that it would be a lot easier if you had a vase that wasn't quite as narrow as mine, but this was the widest vase type of jar thing that I could find at Dollar Tree that wasn't super short. I did want it to have a little bit of height, but this DIY only costs a couple dollars to make, and I do think it turns out really cute. I used a little terracotta piece for the bottom of this. Dollar Tree usually has these available more around the springtime. If you can't find them at Dollar Tree, usually craft stores will have them for $1 or $2. Okay guys, so that is it for the DIYs. To decorate with this, I just added a Hocus Pocus sign. I actually do have that for sale on my Etsy shop if that's something you guys are interested in. I love like a witchy aesthetic for Halloween time. I just think it's really cool, and I hope that you enjoy the DIYs. Let me know in the comments below what you guys are making for your houses this year, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Talk to you soon. Bye.